If you're a coach who wants to have a brand photo shoot done and you're not sure where on earth to start, then stay tuned. I'm going to be taking you through everything that you need to consider when it comes to getting photographs done for your coaching brand. Let's dive in. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura. I help health, life and spiritual coaches get more clients so they can generate more income and live their most aligned life. And today on the show, we're talking all about brand photography and having a brand photo shoot for your coaching business. Now, I find all of this really exciting. I love photo shoots and things like that, but I'm a Leo. I don't mind being the centre of attention. I know for some people it probably is really, really scary, and hopefully I'm going to be sharing loads of tips. Like, I've had several brand photo shoots done. I'm in the process of planning another one for September, and I've really feel like I've nailed the things that you want to consider and think about when it comes to getting the most out of a brand photo shoot. Because trust me, like, mine have getting progressively better as I've getting better at knowing what I need to ask the photographer, what I need to prep, the things that I need to consider. They've getting so much better over time, and I'm really excited about the one that I've got coming up because I think it's going to be the best yet. So I'm going to share all of those tips to make sure that if you do decide to get brand photographs taken for your coaching business, that you get the best possible ones that you can get, that you have the best possible experience and really get some wonderful photographs that feel really good to you at the end of it. So the first tip, of course, is to find a good photographer who you feel comfortable with. I think this is the main thing that is going to help with the outcome, is finding someone who you have a bit of a connection with, because you need to be very comfortable to get really good photos. I think you need to find someone who makes you feel comfortable. And it's also finding someone whose style that you like, whose style goes with the rest of your brand. I'm going to cover that in a second. And someone who understands what lifestyle brand and photography is and needs to look like. In the very early days of my business, I worked with some wedding photographers because there was no one really doing brand lifestyle stuff that I could afford in the Northeast. So I worked with wedding photographers, and I still had some, to be fair, I was still really happy with the photos that I got, but they just weren't quite right. And I think when you work with someone who really knows the ins and outs of this style of photography, and whether they specialize in that or have an element of that in their businesses, and you can see examples of their work that you like, you're going to get really great results. I work with Rachel from RGM Photography up here in the Northeast. She's amazing, fantastic, absolutely love her. This is Jules on Instagram as well, is amazing. I haven't worked with her for brand photography, but I've worked with her for family photography, but I know her brand photography is really beautiful as well. She's got a lovely style. So a couple of fantastic photographers near where I am, but look online, see who you can find, look at their photography style, make sure that it's going to jive with your brand, and just perhaps meet with them and get a sense of what they're like, because you want to be able to feel comfortable with them on the day of the actual shoot. And then the next thing to think about is to write a brief for the photographer. Now, again, if a photographer's back gets up by this, I think that's a bit of a red flag. You should be able to write a bit of a brief that just explains to them what it is that you need out of this, like what it's for. They might ask you questions about this anyway, and any good photographer will, I'm sure, but it can be really useful to have that brief written for yourself so that you know what it is that you need. So this might include things like, the number of photographs you need, what the photographs are going to be used for, all of the ins and outs, what size the photographs need to be, what resolution they need to be, anything like that that you need to be aware of that you want to share with a photographer. Again, most good photographers will lead you a little bit on this and will ask questions so that they know what they need to provide for you. And part of this is also looking at their packages and making sure that their packages are going to give you what you actually need in terms of the end result, in terms of the number of images and things like that as well. And when it comes to thinking about what the images represent and what they look like, it can be really good to begin with thinking about what story you want your images to tell. So this is a tip that I got from Fiona at the Brand Stylist, and she talks about, what story are you telling people with your brand photography, with your images? What is it that you want to communicate? What is it about the process of working with you or the outcomes of working with you that you want to communicate in your photos? This is brand and photography. We want it to be not falsely aspirational, but we want it to be positive. We want those photographs to represent, this is how I work, this is what that looks like, these are the kind of outcomes, this is who I am. And again, a big part of this is about sharing who you are in your photograph, so people get a feel for who they're going to be working with if they decide to work with you as a coach. So it's really thinking about the story that you want your images to tell people when you start thinking about what it is that you want your brand photographs to look like. It might be that you think about your day-to-day life and the photographs tell that story. Like, that's really where a lot of my brand photographs come from, and I think probably what they'll look like for the next shoot is still going to be a lot of me in the house, just telling the kind of story of what my life kind of looks like. I think that's probably the best thing that I can do. And I think a lot of people who run coaching businesses, they want that flexibility and freedom to live the life at home, to be working from home, all that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping I'm going to reflect that in my brand photo shoot, but we'll see what we end up with. But yeah, think about that story that you want to tell with your images. Something else to consider is to link the photography with the overall look and feel of your brand. So do send your photographer any other brand assets that you have, any graphics, any typography, any colours, so they can get a feel for what it is that it's all about. You want the photographs to be in synergy with that. You don't want them to clash. And this also comes to things like, where the photographs are taken, like every element of it, you want it to be aligned with the rest of your brand so that it all makes sense as a complete picture. Your photos don't have to be matchy-matchy with your brand. Like, you don't necessarily have to have all the same colours and your clothing and things, but what you don't want to have is you don't want to have any massive clashes. So for example, in my photographs, like if I was wearing lime green, for example, that would really clash with the whole look and feel of my brand. It's about just identifying what are the absolute no's that would really, really clash and finding things that are a bit more aligned, but it doesn't have to be super matchy-matchy either. Another fantastic thing that you can do is to create a Pinterest board full of inspiration for the shoot. Now, this can include images where you want to recreate the exact kind of setup, the exact shot, which I think is really helpful. It can also be just inspiration. It can be look and feel inspiration. It can be location inspiration, but start to pull together a Pinterest board. Perhaps you use different sections to identify the different elements. Like I say, perhaps this is more of a location inspiration section, and actual poses that you want to recreate. That can be really helpful for the photographer and really helpful for you getting out of the shoot what you want to get out of as well. Then you're going to want to think about your outfits and props. So again, the photographer will probably assist you with this if you get a good lifestyle brand photographer, but think about your outfits, what it is that you actually want to wear. You're probably going to want about 3 to 5 changes. I think for like a 1 to 2 hour shoot, you're looking at about 3 to 5 different outfits. If possible, it's going to give you a bit of variety in there. And you're also going to want to think about props, because photos are not just of you, they're also of your surroundings. So having a selection of props, and whether that's things like mugs, notebooks, pens, plants, flowers, crystals, candles, anything like that, that can really help to bring your photographs alive. And again, it's another way to nod into your general brand feel is by including some of these props, and that can make a massive difference. Like when I started being really conscious about the props that I wanted in the images, that made a huge difference to, I think, how things looked at the end. It really made a huge difference. Obviously, with your outfits, you want to choose outfits that you do feel comfortable in. I think most of us want to be in our images looking happy, looking comfortable. We don't want to be thinking like, oh, is this an unflattering angle in this dress? Like, is this? You want to just feel really comfortable, and the photographer will do the rest. They will assist you on poses and things like that so that you present yourself in the best way so that you feel really good. So just focus on things that make you feel comfortable when it comes to outfits, and you'll be absolutely fine. Another thing that you can consider here is asking your photographer if they can take some shots that don't actually have you in them and that are just of the props. So they're almost like a flat lay or a still life kind of setup, because these can be really good for adding a bit of variety. Let's say that you've got a brand photo shoot for your website. This can be really useful for adding some variety into your pages where everything's aligned with your brand. All the photographs are from the same shoot, but it doesn't have to have your face in. I'm massive on having images of yourself on your website. I think it's really important, and I think you can have as many images of you in there as you want, but at the same time most of us feel a bit more comfortable with some variety. So asking your photographer to throw in a couple of those photos, maybe it's just your desk with your hands in there, or maybe it's just like a wall in your house with some nice decorative things on. Like, just think outside the box, but those photographs can really add a bit of variety to the rest of them where they don't have to have your face in. Obviously, you want to pick your environment carefully when it comes to the shoot, and you can have it all over the place. You can have it in your home, gardens, parks, beaches, woods. Some people even rent an Airbnb, and I've got some thoughts on that, which I'll come to at the end. But you want to think about the environment in which the photographs are going to take place and how, again, aligned that is with your overall brand and the look and feel that you're going for. So for me, I tend to have them done in my house. I love my house. I'm even more excited to get photographs done recently because it's all been decorated. But I tend to have photographs done in my house. I think for this shoot that's coming up, I'm going to have some at home and some potentially at the beach, because that's just been a new place that I often go to that I think would be quite nice in the brand. So we'll see how that goes. But you can think about the environment that you want to be in. Again, it comes back to that story that you want to tell with your images. That's going to be reflected in your brand. If you're a health coach, you might want to have some images taken at the gym. You know, you might want to have some of you out running. There's lots of different elements to this. So really think about the environment and how that reflects the story and the overarching brand feel as well. You also want to think about the aesthetics of the environment too. So again, if you are a health coach and you want to go to a gym, if it's a gym with like, you know, big lime green print or something all over it, that might just massively clash with your brand. And it's okay to think, is that actually the right environment for me for these photographs? Or do we just need to be really careful about where I stand in the gym and how it's cropped, for example? So there's all these different things that you want to take into consideration when it comes to your photographs. It's also worth asking your photographer for tips and tricks when it comes to environments, because they will likely know some really good places locally that, you know, have the look and feel that you're going after. Then a really great thing to think about is to write a shoot list for the actual day of the shoot. So this is something I did on my last one, and you know, again, it's really just about making sure that you get the shots that you want, especially if you've got a Pinterest board filled with poses that you want and you kind of know how you want that to look on your website. Ask your photographer if it's okay if you have a shoot list, so that you can just make sure that you get the ones that you want. So, you know, you can have like me at the desk, me in the kitchen, me doing this, you know, and just have that list, and it just makes sure that you get what it is that you want. So it's not just left to chance on the day, because that can be great. And again, you know, photographers can be awesome and amazing, but ultimately this is your shoot, and if there's things that you want, having a shoot list is going to make sure that you get them. Makeup and hair is another thing to consider. So, and this is a very personal choice. You might want to get your makeup and hair done for the shoot. You might want to bring a makeup artist in, a hairdresser. It's totally up to you. I have had the experience of having my hair and makeup done, and while it was lovely, I'm really particular about my hair and my makeup. And I didn't hate the result, but it just didn't feel like me. And I feel like I'm good enough at doing my own hair and makeup. I mean, she says, looking the way that I look today. But I feel like I'm going to have to give my hair a shake now. I feel like I'm good enough at doing my own hair and makeup not to need to bring in a hairdresser or a makeup artist. Something to bear in mind with photographs is that your makeup will not look as in your face on the images. So go bold on the makeup, because it just won't come through on the images unless you go big. I mean, to be fair, like I'm looking at myself in this video and I've got loads of blusher on and you can barely see it. Like I've got loads of not loads of makeup on, but you know, I've went a bit darker and bolder on my makeup and it's still not really showing through because I've got the light on. So it's just these little things to bear in mind. It might be that you want to practice your makeup and hair before the shoot if you're going to do it yourself, and just take some photos. I'll get someone to take some photographs of you so you can see how the makeup is coming through on camera, because often it comes through differently than we think it does in the mirror, and you need to just go a bit more full on with it basically. And then on the day of the shoot, it's really about just making sure that you have everything to hand that you need. So have your shoot list, have your outfits ready, have some snacks and drinks prepared for everybody depending on how long the shoot is. It might be that you want to have a friend along with you there as well to support you and just to, you know, run around making drinks and things like that, and just to kind of help you relax a little bit can be really good. The last shoot that I did, I wanted to shoot with us as a family. So I had the kids at home, and that was a terrible idea because Freya was about 8 months old. Yeah, she was about 9 months old, and all I could hear was Freya kicking off upstairs with James while I was trying to get my photo taken downstairs. I mean, the photographs were amazing, but I can still see it on my face that I'm like, my child is screaming upstairs. This is not good. It just made the shoot quite stressful, in all honesty. So think about things like that. Do you need pets looked after? Do you need kids looked after? If you do want your kids in some photos, can they be there and then be taken somewhere else? You know, things like that. You want to consider that stuff for the day of the shoot. And ultimately, you just want to enjoy it. Like maybe put some music on, have a really good time. It can be, I know for some people it's like hideous, but it can be a really fun experience, you know, with the right photographer where you feel really comfortable. It can be really, really good fun. So, you know, try and make it the most fun experience as possible, because that's going to show through in the images as well. And then finally, don't be afraid to think outside of the box. Now, there's a wonderful woman called Kelly Deals. She talks about a kind of trend that she's seen in the online business space called the female lifestyle empowerment brand, which is basically where white women kind of capitalize on this appearance of wealth and of affluence, and they leverage that to create a false authority in their work. And often this comes through in a certain style of photo shoot. And, you know, like, that's all good and well. It's just a bit unethical. And I think she makes some really, really good points about this. I'll link to where she's talked about this before. And with our photographs, we have an opportunity, if it feels good to us, and again, I think this is all about what feels aligned for us, we have an opportunity to disrupt that a little bit if we can. And this is where I think hiring an Airbnb that looks really posh and, you know, trying to kind of pull that off in your photographs as if you live there, that's really creating false authority. That's creating a false sense of wealth that you are trying to leverage, which I think is unethical. So that's not something that I would personally do, but it's about thinking, is there a more creative way to look at this? Like, we're all used to, and I mean, like I say, I will have these in my next shoot because I like how they look. But we all know that, you know, the MacBook and coffee images that come with a lot of online businesses. Like I say, personally, I like them. I'm going to still have them in my next shoot. I really did think about this, but I was like, that's literally how I spend my days. Is sat at my desk with my MacBook and my cup of coffee. So it's a bit overdone. It's a bit cliche, but actually that's how I spend my time. But your photo shoot is also an opportunity to really get out of that box if you want to and if it feels aligned, and to do something a bit more creative. And I think this is where, if you really creatively think about the story that you're telling and the outcomes that you get for people, you can get massively creative. Like, I think Kelly suggests, you know, how can you almost think about it almost like a, you know, a magazine editorial. If you were going to be in Vogue, for example, and, you know, a really creative, different kind of shoot, you can go into a studio and do something completely different. There's all sorts of options depending on your overall brand look and feel and the story that you want to tell. So I think it's just good to be aware that this is a way that some people use manipulative images in terms of creating false authority. It's just one of those things to be aware of, and so that you can question that if that feels good for you. You know, there's no right or wrong here, you know, and there's no judgment, but I think it's really about tuning into what's good for you and seeing that it's an opportunity to do something differently. So think about that as well. Think about how you can be more creative. But ultimately, I think it's about the story that you want to tell. And as long as you're telling a story that is honest and genuine and authentic, you can't go wrong. So I hope that has been helpful. I hope it's given you lots of things to think about when it comes to doing a brand photo shoot for yourself. If you want to see this all written down, then do check out the blog post that accompanies this. That's going to be in the description, because sometimes I think if you want to take this away and actually apply some of these tips, it's really useful to see all this written down. So check out the blog post that accompanies this. If you're at the point in your business where you're thinking about these brand photo shoots, you're probably also going to benefit from my Aligned Client Marketing Attraction Workshop. I'll put the link for that in the description. That is going to help you get more clients in a really aligned way and set up your marketing systems in a way that actually works. So do check that out. I'll put a link for that in the description as well. And as always, if you have enjoyed this episode of the show, please give me a thumbs up. Give me a comment below. Tell me a bit about your brand photo shoot experience. Have you had one? Are you planning one? You know, how did it work for you? Please let me know. I'm actually going to get some, like I was saying, I'm going to have some taken very soon. I will definitely share on the show when I get those done. I'm really excited about it. Pop me a DM on Instagram. I'm at Wholehearted Laura. Also on Threads as well if you want to message me there. But yeah, I hope you guys are doing well, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.